leaked episodes. I have no idea what anyone's talking about. I have definitely not seen what's arguably the most hilarious and adorable episode of the entire series weeks before it was scheduled to air. Of course not. And also not the following episode, which is also funny and pleasantly low-key and definitely didn't make me think, oh my god, not another superpower. We just talked about this. No, we're talking about episodes 3 and 4 of season 3, Same Old World, and Barnmates, which do have a common subject, and that is Lapis.
I feel like I only get to see you when something horrible's going on.
I know, right? But specifically, we're going to be touching on stuff that happened in these episodes, but we're really going to be talking about Lapis as a character and how far she's come. Lapis Lazuli was the very first non-crystal gem character we ever saw, really opening up the world and bringing home that the crystal gems are part of a larger race. Her appearance also marked the first implication that the crystal gems themselves might have a past that's less than honorable, as she berates them for not freeing her from the mirror, but we still don't get the details of what exactly that might have been. And because of her reveal, the gems finally admit where all the monsters they've been fighting all this time have been coming from, which brings their relationship and treatment of other gems into question. So right off the bat, Lapis's introduction gives the series a whole new, richer dimension, which only tangentially has to do with Lapis herself, but that with her overwhelming ocean-stealing waterbending ability and assumedly tragic backstory, she left a huge impression. And to be honest, it probably helped that out of all the gems designs we've seen so far, I don't think it's too controversial to say that Lapis Lazuli is the closest to the conventional standard of feminine beauty. She has no real cartoonish exaggeration, she has that lovely flowing dress, and she's blue, statistically everyone's favorite color in the world. And I don't know if this was on purpose, but maybe this was to visually emphasize her repeated tendency to have terrible things happen to her and make her look more vulnerable and easier to empathize with? I don't know. Though that sort of traditional feminine aesthetic might just be a characteristic of all blue gems. But granted, each time Lapis has been knocked down, eventually at least she has fought back strong. Still, before now, despite her numerous memorable appearances, it's been difficult to get a grip on what exactly her personality is, because every time we've seen her, she's been in a state of high distress. Everything she does is a reaction to something we haven't seen. There's no context, so she's still essentially an enigma, but there's enough clues that fans have certainly had fun theorizing what she was before the Gem War. Why does she hate Earth? How did she end up in the mirror? Does she detest the gems just for not freeing her? Or did they actually know each other? Well, among the other intriguing theories, it turns out, no, she just happened to be on Earth at the time during the Great Gem War and just happened to get stepped on. Well, that's boring, but also vague enough so that we might be able to fill in some details in the future. The one interesting aspect is that she was placed in the mirror by the Homeworld gems, accused of being a crystal gem and interrogated mercilessly. So Lapis's resentment of the crystal gems is not wholly unfounded, but not based on actually knowing them at all, which does at least leave room for her to possibly build a real relationship with them in the future. Okay, is everyone gonna go on a Lapis bonding field trip now too? Still, that opened a whole list of questions on how exactly the mirror works, but that's largely unimportant, so we're not gonna get into that. Honestly, I was never that focused on her backstory as much as I was curious about what happened when she returned to Homeworld. I mean, we get the gist of what happened, but really think about it. When she left, she was a bastion of strength. She was free after a millennia unprisoned and was not going back no matter what. She was strong and defiant. How bad was her return to Homeworld for her not only to get knocked back to being a prisoner again, but insisting that fighting and resistance was completely not an option? Well, obviously not completely, because she still tries to protect Steven with the message and eventually surrenders herself to imprisoning Jasper. Still, that entire ordeal must have been so devastating. I just keep on thinking of certain lines that Lapis said that allude to something a little bit more traumatizing than just being overpowered must have happened to her. Also, admittedly, it's still unclear how to know how much water there is on Homeworld. Obviously, there's some. We know that tears are a thing, and Peridot mentions the connection between Lazuli's and water as though it's common knowledge, and supposedly her gem may contain some water for her wings, unless that's an advanced water out of the air technique. But it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of oceans on that gem colony plan. And considering she doesn't seem to have any problems with the amount of water she can handle, no doubt she was probably not as powerful as she was when she was on Earth. Yeah, so why did you want to leave again, Lapis? You don't remember last time when you tried and you were confused by how advanced it was and then Jasper happened? You really want to rush back into that? Oh, never mind, you'll remember in 2 minutes. We just needed the padding of Steven looking for Lion for some reason. But yeah, Same Old World finally shows Lapis in a state of not danger, and we get a glimpse of Lapis's not in distress personality, and she's happy and she's playful. A side of her we have seen a little bit before when she was trapped inside the mirror. She also did seem to bond with Steven very quickly, as everyone seems to.
Thank you, Steven.
No prob, Bob.
I get it now! But that especially alludes a lot to her personality. Obviously, Lapis feels connected to Steven, not just as the one person that helped her, but the only person she's met that hasn't tried to use or attack her since she got freed. And it could be just that, but enough to indefinitely imprison herself? So I actually have some theories about Lapis's backstory, at least personality-wise. First, Lapis gives off a pretty clear impression of being a loner by her many outcries of "leave me alone" and "I don't want your help." That's likely a byproduct of her 1,000-year imprisonment and trauma, that she just doesn't trust anyone. But I also think it could be one of two things. One is that Lapis was always a loner, even before the war, and has never been very good at working with anyone. This would make Steven not just her helper, but also her very first friend, making that instant trusting kinship a little bit more understandable. But it could also be that through some other trauma that we haven't seen, Lapis had an experience where another friend tried to help her but suffered for it.
I don't want your help. Things are bad enough as it is. I've already made too much trouble. If we do everything they say, they might go easy on us.
This would explain why she's incredibly loyal and protective of Steven, who's helped her, but why she insists that she doesn't want his help and wants to protect her by herself. She doesn't want anything bad to happen to him because he was trying to protect her. And I would say it's more likely it's the latter because this way she knows how fusion works. Either way, it's clear that she's both highly sufficient and also has legit trust issues. Anyway, back to the thing. So at the end of the episode, she finally decides to stay on Earth, and assumedly in the barn, where Peridot shows up and goes, "Hey, we're gonna be roomies! This is gonna be so great!" Yeah, Peridot has become incredibly friendly and vocal lately. Again, a little abruptly, but I have no real qualms about it because Peridot is awesome. But understandably, Lapis does not want to room with someone who had her imprisoned, and also because Peridot is unable to see how this makes Lapis uncomfortable. So Barnmates largely consists of Peridot and Steven trying to find ways to get Lapis to forgive her through a series of human apologizing rituals. Even though it's clear that throughout this entire time, Peridot still doesn't really get what Lapis went through, and doesn't even see how what she did was even really that bad. Still, sequences of Peridot trying to act human are always a great source of comedy, when she's trying to give her gifts and writing the letter, but I admit at this time it was a bit curious as to why Peridot was trying so hard. Peridot always seemed like the kind of gem who'd want to be left alone. But when she's finally honest with Lapis, it makes sense. Peridot has resolved to stay on Earth, and she's come a long way, but Earth is still strange. Despite becoming besties with the other gems, she's still the fish out of water because she's still confused about, well, everything. But now Lapis is also stranded and confused, and Peridot not only finds another gem that she has something in common with, but heck, for the first time, she knows more about the Earth than someone else does. And it's very touching on how earnest a lot of her attempts to reconcile with Lapis are, making her even more endearing. But Lapis's feelings make sense too. She just spent 1,000 years being traumatized by other gems. That she wants to be alone and doesn't feel the need to be particularly nice about it is perfectly understandable. All the same, it's good that Steven is a mediator, trying to show them both how the others feel. Still, being a family-oriented person as Steven is, he himself can't really get how much distrust Lapis must feel. He just knows that he always feels better being around other people, so he is pretty, if slightly biasedly, on Peridot's side. And in a way, he's probably right. As much as I can relate to totally wanting to be separated from people as long as I possibly can, she really needs to learn to trust others again. And in the end, he finally helps Lapis at least try to give Peridot a second chance. in the form of a badass rescue. However, it also marks the beginning of Lapis only having one facial expression for the next couple episodes. Lapis in the past has been very expressive, but now she's going to have permanent cranky teenage whatever face. Another shift that's really abrupt, but also one that does make some sense. At this point, Lapis still has not really bonded or forgiven any of the other gems, but for Steven's sake, and because she knows she doesn't really have any other choice, she knows she's stuck with them. So this is what my life is now, and I'm not particularly happy about it, but I also know this is the best I can do, so I can't really complain, but I'm still going to be cranky face. Still, I can't say that I expected Lapis to suddenly become our deadpan comic relief character, but for her traumatizing recovery period, this kind of works. But I'm also looking forward to seeing how she'll change and grow from this after she and Peridot have lived together for a while. And if nothing else happens this season, I had better see a Lapis Peridot fusion before the end of the season, because I know that will be a big deal, because Peridot has all of these hang-ups about fusion, and because Lapis' most recent experience with fusion was one of imprisonment and also kind of abuse. So it'll be a fantastic growing moment to show that the two have finally gotten to a point where they genuinely trust each other. You know, I don't really ship that much, but yeah, I am all for this. I think this would be amazing. Which makes me all the more sad because after next episode, we probably won't be seeing them for a while. So Same Old World is pleasant and revealing, but Barnmates is by far more satisfying just seeing the way that Lapis and Peridot interact. But I gotta be honest, guys, doing these, I kinda remember why I stopped doing weekly episode reviews in the first place. They just take up a lot of time, and are mostly used as distractions from bigger projects that I really want to be working on. So I really can't promise you that I'm gonna still talk about Steven Universe on any sort of regular schedule, but I'll definitely come back to it when I really feels like there's something interesting to talk about. But at the moment, I really do need to catch up on some past business. But seriously, Hit the Diamond is amazing.